Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back. First off, I'd like to say thank you so much for all the great comments and the thumbs up on my videos. I really appreciate all of that and hope to keep making helpful videos that are also enjoyable. So with that said, let's get on to the next, hopefully helpful video, and that is how to make gasoline. So even if you know how to make gasoline, I've got some helpful tips at the end that you might want to check out. Not having enough gasoline is probably the first problem you run into when you're playing Townstar. So if you're having a little bit or a lot of trouble with gasoline, you're not alone. I know when I first started playing Townstar, I was like, okay, so I need gas to be able to sell things, right? Okay, let's see, I can probably make gas with a refinery. Okay, there's a refinery, and the refinery needs a paved road. Okay, I can do that. Paved road, put down a refinery. It's built, sweet. And go to make gasoline. And what is all this stuff it needs? Oh my gosh! So let's jump into this video and find out what all that stuff is and more. So the very first step, though, in thinking about gasoline is where to place your town on the world map. You have to place your town so that you can either sell easily to the city by a truck or a boat, so land or water. They do plan to make it possible to sell by cargo plane, which is like a direct path, I guess, to the city. They have the jet fuel in the game, so I think they're having a little bit of trouble maybe programming it on the world map, they said. So like right now you can't drive through mountains, basically. So if we look at the world map here, if you're on this island, you decide you want a town on the island of Newfoundland here. You can't drive off the island, obviously. So you have to build a boat. But the closest city to sell by boat is way down here at New York. So that's probably not the best spot to build at right now. Maybe with an airplane, it might go faster. I don't know. I don't know how they think airplanes are going to work, but right now you can't even sell by land and you have to have a boat. And then you have spots, I put this red X there. You have spots like that where it's in the middle of the land, but it's surrounded all four sides. It doesn't work diagonally. All four sides are surrounded by water, so you can't put a truck, you can't sell by truck there. And if you put a boat there, the boat can't get out to go anywhere. So you really can't do anything in that spot. There's another spot down here, this guy where my mouse is. It's surrounded all four sides by water. This side, though, is open. You could have a boat go all the way out and around and go to New York down there. But that's an awfully long trip. And that might be, it's definitely 2 gas. It's probably 3 gas. So it's not a very good spot to build in either. And there are places in the mountains, like right here, this red outline I made, where the truck cannot find a path out of the mountains. Like I said, it doesn't work diagonally. It has to be like side to side. And the game won't actually let you build a town in there. So at least they don't let you completely mess it up like that. But if you're wondering why there are certain places you can't even build a town, that's why. So you want to make sure that when you're placing your town, you have a good path to a city, either by land or by water, and that you're close enough that you're only spending 1 or 2 gasoline. And that's about 20 tiles. 18 to 20 tiles is about the edge of 1 gas. Anything beyond that is 2, and then you get 3 and more. But if you build a city and one of the first things, and you're not sure, one of the first things you should do is go to sell the wheat you have. And if it costs 3 gas, I would try and pick a different spot. 2 might work. 1's obviously perfect, but all right, with that out of the way, let's figure this out. So when you build a refinery, this is what you get. Gasoline. It takes 1 petroleum, 2 water drums, 6 energy. And the petroleum you make in the refinery also. And it's right here. So here's the petroleum. The petroleum needs water drums and energy, so the same, and it needs 2 crude oil. So petroleum needs all the same things as the gasoline does, but it also needs crude oil. And then you use the petroleum to make gasoline. So first, you really need to make petroleum. So I should have titled this, How to Make Petroleum, not How to Make Gasoline. So really, we just need the water drums right there, the energy, and crude oil. So the water drums can be made in the water facility, and it's under the industrial tab right there. So here's the water facility in the game. And when you put it down, you want to make sure it has the 3 water it needs to make water drums automatically. So here it will get 2 water from the pond and 1 from the marsh. So it will get the 3 water it needs to make water drums automatically. Otherwise, he will have to run to a well to get the water he needs. And if you're not sure what spot will get 3 water or anything like that, feel free to check out my other video about water. I'll make sure to leave a link down below. So the water facility will make the drums, but we have to store the drums somewhere. And they get stored in this warehouse right here. So we need a warehouse and a water facility to make and store the water drums. So you need the water facility to make the water drums, and you need the warehouse to store the water drums. And really the warehouse stores any industrial good, like even the sand mine up there that you can't quite see. Even the sand mine, it will store silica in the warehouse when it's made. So with that out of the way, we need energy next. And here's a wind turbine in the game. You want to keep the wind turbine away by about 2 tiles or 2 spots from other buildings. So similar to the water facility just making the water drums, the wind turbine just makes energy. So we have to store the energy somewhere, and the good news is it gets stored in the warehouse as well over here. The bad news though is that the wind turbine does not have its own worker like the water facility, so you have to build a separate worker house to get the energy from the wind turbine and take it to the warehouse to store it. So you can see here, we just built the worker house, and there's the little worker running out, going down the road to the wind turbine on this town. And he's going to run up, grab the little battery, that's the energy, and he's going to run and put it in the warehouse right there. So that takes care of water drums and energy. So all we have left is the crude oil. And that requires an oil pump right here. It's not too expensive. It takes 3 wood to build. Also, the pump requires 3 minutes wherever it's placed to make crude oil. And like a wind turbine, it requires a worker to go get the crude oil when it's done produced and put it in the fuel storage. Now, since it takes 3 minutes wherever it's put, I suggest putting 2 to 4 of these down to make enough crude oil so you can make all the gasoline you need to. So when you have all of that going, then you can work on paving a road and building the refinery. So first, like we said, of course, since gasoline requires the petroleum, you have to make the petroleum first. And then after you make about 3 or 4 petroleum, or use up all your crude oil, you can stop crafting the petroleum and start crafting gasoline. But you do want to be careful, because if you're crafting gasoline and you don't have any petroleum, You put that water in there and the energy, and you click stop crafting, it will lose that energy and water. So let's take a look at the breakdown of all you need here. You need that oil pump, and I would suggest building that first because you already have the storage for it. But to actually get the oil, you need the worker. So, and you can start building up a supply of crude oil. Then you could do the wind turbine and the water facility. And of course, you need the warehouse to store the energy and the water drums. So that should be before either of those, really. And then once you have those things in place, you can pick a spot to put down a paved road and put the refinery next to it. So as you can see, it's about 10, 20, 30, 45, and pretty close to $50,000 in the game. So that's kind of the hardest thing about making gas, is just building up enough of a income or revenue in the game to afford to make gas. And actually, I plan to make one of my next couple videos about how to build up that income to make gasoline. But windmills, sheep, or grapes are the three biggest things, and I hope to make a video about all three of those and cover them in depth. And even though they've nerfed grapes twice now, I think I will actually start with grapes. And even though I bashed grapes a little bit, saying you can't win the game or whatever with grapes, I think it's still a really good way to start with the game. So even on top of all of that cost, I personally prefer to make a second refinery as quick as I can, because I don't like having one refinery and switching between petroleum and gas. That requires a lot of paying attention and playing. If you have two refineries, obviously you can set one to just make petroleum and set one just to make gas, and then you can like walk away and take a break every now and then. And in this picture, I left a space between them to later put in a power plant to supply the electricity or the energy they need passively. Not have to worry about that. So this is the setup I used in my last game, and I kind of like it quite a bit. You've got the one refinery there, and like I said, I left a space in between the two refineries I have. And then I built a power plant and a power plant. Now, power plants require the water pump and the paved road. So I put a pond there, as you can see, and the two water pumps. And these two water pumps will give this refinery two water drums passively, kind of like a pond. So this refinery gets all the water drums it needs to make gasoline, because gasoline requires two water drums. And these two power plants give it 6 energy, which is exactly what it needs. So all it needs is one petroleum to make its gasoline. And this refinery over here is making the petroleum, and it needs crude oil. I have a few crude oil here. That will be my next video. But it needs the crude oil, and it gets the one water it needs, and it gets all the energy it needs from that power plant right there. So I really like this setup. You can set that up, and all you need is some crude oil and the fuel storage, and it takes care of itself. You can shove it off into a corner and not have to worry about it, basically. So to make that, though, comes with a pretty steep cost. You've got to do that second refinery, 2 power plants, and power plants are not cheap, especially early on in the game. They're $100,000, and that takes a little bit of saving. Then you need a pond to put the water pumps down. And the water pumps cost $50,000 each. So you're looking at like an extra $450,000. Then there's the paved roads also. So it's probably close to $500,000. And to build that pond, you also need a well, because you're not going to have that water next to it. So obviously you're not going to pay for this all at once. You're probably going to put it in step by step and build up as you get more money. And you start with that second refinery and then put the pond in and then put a water pump in, and that will give you the passive water drum. And then you can, when you save up even more money, you can put that power plant in. The power plant requires lumber to build. So you're going to have some extra energy, and you're going to have made lumber also to build a power plant. But once you get that in, you'll have passive energy to both the refineries, so you'll take a lot less energy to make that petroleum and gasoline. And then you can work on getting that second water pump and the second power plant. So I think that pretty much sums up gas. And it's not terribly complicated, but at first you can be thrown off by what's all this stuff, you know? And what's that? Oh, you wanted to know about the grape changes? Well, it's actually my wife that found out first. She sold some grapes just a few hours ago, and instead of 540 points for 10 grapes sold, she got 450 points for 10 grapes sold. And the money was less also. Like 50,000 to 44,000, I think, dollars for 10 grapes sold. So that's the second time they've nerfed grapes in the last, month or month and a half at most, but probably in the last month. I don't believe they were anticipating on people selling a bunch of ponds and to build a lumber mill and jumping right to building grapes. So I guess they had to take that into account. And in my next video, I'm going to go over what I did in last week's May Mayhem, the last week. And then the next video after that, I plan to go into detail about Grape Rush. So make sure you subscribe and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. I really appreciate it, like I said earlier in the video. So keep watching for more Town Star content.